Hi, welcome back. Today we shall be reading Chapter 41 An Invitation for Peace. Sati, Bhagirath, Chandraketu, Matali, and Brahaspati had collected in the Lothal governor Chinardhwaj's private office. They had just received a visitor from Devagiri with a message from Kanakhala, a message that had left them stunned. Peace conference, asked Bhagirath. What deception are they planning? Prince Bhagirath rebuked the Lothal governor Chinardhwaj. This is Meluha. Laws are not broken here, and the laws of a peace conference are very clear. They were designed by Lord Ram himself. There is no question of there being any deception. And what about the attack on Panchavati? Asked Matali, the king of Vaishali. They have clearly found the Narmada route to the Naga capital and have sent their ships on an attack mission, even as they try to sidetrack us. How is that subterfuge, King Matali? Asked Chinardhwaj. They are at war with us. They found a weak spot and decided to attack. That is how wars are conducted. I don't have a problem with the Meluhans choosing to attack Governor Chinardhwaj, said Chandraketu, the king of Branga. What is worrying is that they chose to attack Panchavati and call a peace conference at the same time. That sounds fishy to me. I agree, said Bhagirath. Maybe it is a ruse to draw us out of the city, with a call for a peace conference and then attack us. Without the protective defences of the Lothal fort, we may well be beaten by the Meluhans. Prince Bhagirath, said Brahaspati, we have also received word that the Meluhan army has still not marched out of Karachapa. If their plan was to trick us out of Lothal, why wouldn't they mobilize their army at the same time? Chandraketu nodded. That is confusing. Maybe there are divisions within Meluha, suggested Brahaspati. Maybe some people want peace, while others want war. We cannot trust this initiative blindly, said Sati, but we cannot ignore it either. If there is a possibility that the Somras can be stopped without any more killing, it is worth grabbing, right? But the message is for Lord Shiva, said Bhagirath. Shouldn't we await his return? Sati shook her head. That may take months. We don't even know if he has succeeded in convincing the Vayuputras. What if he hasn't? We would then be in a very weak position to negotiate a ban on the Somras. It is a stalemate right now. Even the Meluhans know that. Who knows? We might be able to negotiate good terms at the conference. We could, said Chandraketu. Or we might just march straight into a trap and have our entire army destroyed. Sati knew this was a difficult decision. It couldn't be made in a hurry. I need to think about this some more, she said, ending the discussion. Sati walked into the heavily guarded room. The visitor from Devagiri, who had carried Kanakhala's message, had been detained in a comfortable section of the Lothal governor's office. While the messenger had been treated well, the windows of his room had been boarded up and the doors kept locked at all times, as abundant caution. He had been blindfolded while being allowed into the city and was led straight to this room. His men had been made to wait outside the city. Sati did not want the peace envoy to take note of the defensive arrangements within the city. Your Highness, said the Meluhan as he rose and saluted Sati. She was still the princess of Meluha for him. Brigadier Mahashrinik, said Sati with a formal namaste. She had always thought well of the Arishtanemi brigadier. Mahashrinik looked towards the door with a frown. Isn't the Nilkant joining us? Vrigu had decided against sharing intelligence with Daksha at Devagiri. It would only cause Daksha's unwelcome interference in war strategies to continue, which Parvateshwar, being a disciplined Meluhan, would find difficult to constantly withstand. Therefore, Mahashrinik, like every Meluhan in Devagiri, did not know what Parvateshwar in Karachapa suspected, that Shiva may have sailed up the Narmada and then marched on to Panchavati. Sati obviously didn't want to reveal Mahashrinik that Shiva was not in Lothal, but she didn't want to lie either. No. But when you speak with me, said Sati, interrupting him, it is as good as speaking with him. Mahashrinik frowned. Is it that the Lord Nilkant doesn't want to meet me? Doesn't he want peace? Does he think that destroying Meluha is the only way forward? Shiva does not think that Meluha is evil, only the Somras is evil, and of course, he is very willing to sue for peace if Meluha meets just one simple demand: abandon the Somras. Then he must come for the peace conference. That's where the problem lies. How can we believe that Kanakhala's invitation is genuine? Your Highness, said a stunned Mahashrinik, surely you don't think Meluha would lie about a peace conference. How can we? Lord Ram's law forbid it. Meluhans may always follow the law, Brigadier. My father doesn't. Your Highness, the Emperor's efforts are genuine. And why should I believe that? I am sure your spies have already told you that Maharishi Vrigu is in Karachapa. So? Maharishi Vrigu is the one who doesn't want any compromise, Your Highness. Your father wants peace. He has an opportunity for it while the Maharishi is away. You know that once your father signs a peace treaty, it will be very difficult for Maharishi Vrigu to overrule it. Meluha recognizes only the Emperor's order. Even now, while Maharishi Vrigu may give the orders, they are all issued in the name of the Emperor. You want me to believe that my father has suddenly developed enough character to stand up for what he thinks is right? You're being unfair. Really? Don't you know that he killed my first husband? He has no respect for the law. But he loves you. Sati rolled her eyes in disgust. Please, Mahashrinik, do you really expect me to believe that he is pushing for peace because he loves me? He saved your life, Your Highness. What utter nonsense! Have you also fallen for that ridiculous explanation? Do you really believe that my father threw out my Naga child and kept him hidden for me for nearly 90 years so he could save my life? No, he didn't. He did it because he wanted to protect his own name. He didn't want people to know that Emperor Daksha had a Naga grandchild. That is the reason why he broke the law. I'm not talking about what happened 90 years ago, Your Highness. I'm talking about what happened just a few years ago. What? How do you think the alarm went off at Panchavati? Sati remained silent, stunned by the revelation. The timely triggering of that alarm saved your life. How do you know about that? Lord Vrigu had sent the ships to destroy Panchavati. But your father sent me to sabotage that operation. I triggered the alarm that saved all of you. I did it on your father's orders. He harmed his empire and his interests in order to protect you. Sati stared at Mahashrinik, gobsmacked. I don't believe you. It is the truth, Your Highness, said Mahashrinik. You know I don't lie. Sati took a deep breath and looked away. Even if His Highness is thinking of peace only because of his love for you and not because of his duty towards Meluha, wouldn't our country benefit all the same? Do we really want this war to continue till Meluha is destroyed? Sati held her counsel as she turned towards Mahashrinik. Please speak to the Nilkant, my lady. He listens to you. The peace offer is genuine. Sati didn't say anything. May I please have an audience with the Nilkant, Your Highness? Asked Mahashrinik, still unsure of whether Sati had committed herself to peace. No, you may not, said Sati. One of my guards will guide you to the city gates. Go back to Devagiri. I will give serious thought to what you have said. We should consider attending the peace conference, said Sati. She was in conference with Bhagirath, Brahashpati, Chinardhwaj, Chandraketu and Matali at the governor's residence. That is not a wise idea, my lady, said Bhagirath. Only Lord Ram can know what traps they may have set for us. On the contrary, I think it may be very wise. Is there a good possibility that the army in Karachapa doesn't know what my father is doing in Devagiri? It's possible, said Brahashpati. But do you actually think your father is driving the peace conference? Does he have the strength to push his way through? Perhaps it's not him alone. Prime Minister Kanakhala is certainly involved for one, said Sati. The invitation is in her name. Kanakhala has influence over the emperor, no doubt, agreed Chinadhwaj. And she is certainly not a warmonger. Her instincts are usually towards peace. Also, she is a devoted follower of the Nilkant. Does she have the capability to enforce the peace accord? Asked Bhagirath. Yes, she does, said Sati. The Meluhan system works on the principle of written orders. The supreme written order is that one that comes from the emperor. Lord Rigu does not issue orders himself. He asks my father to ratify what he deems fit. If my father issues an order on peace before Lord Rigu gets to know of it, all Meluhans will be forced to honor it. So if Prime Minister Kanakhala can get my father to issue the order, she can enforce the peace accord. If we can achieve the objective of removing the Somras without any further bloodshed, it will be a deed that Lord Rudra would be proud of, said Matali. But we should respond carefully, persisted a cautious Bhagirath. If it is true that peace is being pursued only by Emperor Daksha and Prime Minister Kanakhala, we will put our army at risk if we march out. Karachapa is not very far. Right, said Sati, with healthy respect for the tactical brilliance of General Parvateshwar. If Pitritulya in Karachapa hears about our army moving out, he will assume that we are attacking Devagiri. He will race out of Karachapa to intercept us at the Saraswati river. Damned if we respond and damned if we don't, said Chandraketu. So what do we do? Asked Chinardhwaj. I will go, said Sati. The rest of you, including the army, should stay within the walls of Lothal. My lady, said Matali, that is most unwise. You will need the army's protection to prevent any possible harm to your person in Devagiri. The Meluhans may fight with my army outside Devagiri, said Sati, but they will not fight me alone. It's my father's house. Bhagirath shook his head. My apologies, my lady, but your father has not proved himself to be a paragon of virtue so far. I would be wary of your travelling to Devagiri without protection. We cannot discount the remote possibility that the peace conference is a ruse to draw our leaders to Devagiri and then assassinate them. Chinardhwaj was genuinely offended now. Prince Bhagirath, I say this for the last time. These things do not happen in Meluha. Arms cannot be used at a peace conference under any circumstances. Those are the rules of Lord Ram. No Meluhan will break the laws of the seventh Vishnu. Sati raised her hand, signalling a call for calm, and then turned towards Bhagirath. Prince, trust me. My father will never harm me. He loves me. In his own twisted way, he really does care for me. I am going to Devagiri. This is our best shot at peace. It is my duty to not let it slip by. Bhagirath could not shake off his sense of foreboding. My lady, I insist you allow me and Ayodhyan brigade to travel with you. Your men will be put to better use here, Prince Bhagirath. said Sati. Also, you and your soldiers are Chandravanshis. Please don't misunderstand me, but I would much rather take some Suryavanshis along. After all, I am going to the Suryavanshi capital. I will go with Nandi and my personal bodyguards. But my child, said Brahaspati. That is only 100 soldiers. Are you sure? It's a peace conference, Brahaspati ji, said Sati. Not a battle. But the invitation was for Lord Neelkant, said Chandraketu. The Lord Neelkant has appointed me as his representative, Your Highness, said Sati. I can negotiate on his behalf. I have made up my mind. I am going to Devagiri. I have a bad feeling about this, my lady, pleaded Veerbhadra. Please don't go. Also assembled in Sati's private chamber were Parshuram and Nandi, whose expressions were equally anguished. Veerbhadra, don't worry, said Sati. I will return with a peace treaty that will end the war as well as the reign of the Somras. But why aren't you allowing Veerbhadra and me to accompany you, my lady? Why is only Nandi being given the privilege of travelling with you? Sati smiled. I would have loved to have the both of you with me. It's just that I am only taking Suryavanshis, that's all. They are familiar with the Meluhan customs and ways. This is going to be a sensitive conference anyway. I wouldn't want anything going wrong inadvertently, even before it begins. But my lady, continued Parshuram, we have sworn to protect you. How can we just let you go without us? I will be with her, Parshuram, said Nandi. Don't worry, I will not let anything happen to Lady Sati. There is absolutely no reason why anything untoward should happen. Nandi, it's a peace conference. If we don't arrive at a peace settlement, the Meluhans will have to allow us to return unharmed. That is Lord Ram's law. Veerbhadra continued to brood silently, clearly unconvinced. Sati reached out and patted Veerbhadra on his shoulder. We must make an attempt at peace, you know that? We can save the lives of so many. I have no choice. I must go. You do have a choice, argued Veerbhadra. Don't go yourself. I am sure you can nominate someone to attend the conference on your behalf. Sati shook her head. No, I must go. I must. Because it was my fault. What? It was my fault that so many of our soldiers died in Devagiri, and our elephant corps was destroyed. I am to blame for the loss of almost our entire cavalry. It is because of me that we do not have enough strength to beat them in an open battle now. Since it is my fault, it is now my responsibility to set it right. The loss in Devagiri was not your fault, my lady, said Parshuram. Circumstances were aligned against us. In fact, you salvaged a lot for a terrible situation. Sati narrowed her eyes. If an army loses, it is always because of the general's poor planning. Circumstance is just an excuse for the weak to rationalize their failures. However, I have been given another chance to make up for my blunder. I cannot ignore it. I will not. My lady, said Veerbhadra, please listen to me. Bhadra, said Sati, using the name her husband did for his best friend. I am going. I will return unharmed and with a peace treaty.